Hey everybody, welcome to Big Balls Fantasy Football, the only show with powerful picks, sexy super fans, and is really fun. I'm your co-host, 20-year fantasy veteran, Greg Reifsteck.
And I'm your co-host, Jenilee, Borek, a 10-year fantasy veteran, and as you can see, we both love the Chicago Bears. Bear down.
Yep, and together we are
the beauty
and the beast
of fantasy football experts.
So, it's week 2 of preseason, and this week we are going to give you wide receivers and tight ends, sleepers that are a little bit down the list that you're not going to think are going to score big for you, but we think you should take in higher rounds. But first, we got to talk Bears.
Absolutely. So, did you see the whole Bears game?
Yes, I did.
So, there were some good things, some bad things, as most preseason games go. And what was the thing that you were complaining about? Because Greg was texting me the whole game and complaining about one specific area.
Defense! We're still 30th in the league in preseason defense, and we have brought Houston, we have brought on Allen, we have brought on a lot of new defensive heat, and I really hope our coach Tucker gets it together.
And what I was seeing was I feel like the defensive line is starting to come together a little bit. And the corners, Jennings and Peanut are playing good. They're going to be fine, I think. I'm not really worried about the corners, and I'm not really worried about the line as much. I'm worried about the linebackers and the safeties. Of course, we have young linebackers out there. Shea McCullough is still auditioning, you can say, to see if he's going to make it. Bostic's out there, so it just doesn't seem like we're very solid there. And then our safeties are, have been an issue, are still an issue. We have no idea who the starters are going to be. So those are the two areas, which is the middle of the field, that is scary. And that was where Jacksonville was pretty much throwing the ball in the middle of the field.
At will. Yeah, early in the game. It tightened up at the end, and we eventually won, so we're 2-0 in preseason, which means nothing except for pride's sake. But offensively, we looked fantastic. And offensively, we're going to have one big change. One bad thing happened, but I thought it was a good thing, is we got rid of Weems.
Yeah, and I think he was in there primarily for returning, and he wasn't doing that well.
No, he was not.
So,
not
we
all.
brought him in. Has he been with the team 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
2 years ago, maybe?
So in place of Weems, we got Santonio Holmes, veteran wide receiver, of course, caught, the winning touchdown catch in the, the Steelers Super Bowl.
A long
time ago, but, I love that was the thing that kept being shown on Chicago press. Don't forget, this is the guy we're getting. Unfortunately, we're getting the person that hasn't been super disciplined, wasn't a really good leader, and was asked to lead on the Jets and had some problems.
Yeah, and you have to remember that he had Mark Sanchez throwing to him for most of the time that he was on the Jets. So the Jets' offense has never been good. I'm hoping that maybe, since he's only being asked to be a number 3, he's not asked to be a number 1 or number 2 for that matter, that in Trestman's offense, he'll get going again. Yeah. So that's, fingers crossed, the hope. Yeah. And he's only the age of Brandon Marshall as well. He's only 30 years old. So we're not getting a wide receiver that, he's a veteran, but he's not, 35 years old.
Right. Can Trestman be a wide receiver whisperer as well? Let's find out. He was very, of course, the Chicago press were all over him, and he's like, we talked to him. I think he's a different guy. Let's go. And that's the way he's talked about a lot of players on our team that have come on that were supposed to be head cases. And Trestman has just, kept everybody cool on our team. So last season, under Sanchez and a little bit of Geno Smith, he played 11 games, 23 receptions, 456 yards. He also came off of Liz Frank surgery the season before. And we all know, that can cause problems in the long run.
That's definitely a tough injury for players. So, like we said, he's just out there auditioning with the rest of the wide receivers that we have, but hopefully bringing in a veteran and not asking him to do as much will help.
So, that was the Bears. Let's get into the picks, the sleeper picks. So, when we come back, we will give you our sleeper wide receivers and our tight ends. Hey everybody, welcome back to BigBallsFantasyFootball.com. We're here with the beauty and the beast, and we are going to give you our sleeper wide receivers and tight ends that are going to help you win your draft.
Yeah, and the wide receiver spot is very important, especially if you're in a PPR league. It's a very deep position.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some teams that have one or two good wide receivers, some teams that have three, very good productive wide receivers. So we're here to help you navigate through the guys that you can get later in the rounds that are the sleepers, but that are going to produce, because there's certain offenses that don't produce near as well as others either.
Mm-hmm.
So
you also want to prepare yourself for injury. A lot of the starters are getting injured even already in camp. So you want to have some deeper players. You want to also have some rookies that are already taking off in preseason. I will go to my first wide receiver. John Brown of the Arizona Cardinals has already created a very good chemistry with Carson Palmer, who of course was shaky last season, that we thought was going to do a lot better. He's getting another weapon. Brown went 5 catches for 87 yards in his preseason debut against the Vikings. His second game, he got 86 yards on 2 receptions versus the Vikings. And the GM is impressed like hell with him. He's saying, my God, we're so glad we have this guy, and he is performing better than even our veteran wide receivers on the team right now. So he's a person to watch, definitely in, I would say, the mid-rounds.
yeah, and keep an eye as well if you're in a very deep league.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a 12-person, 14-person league,
yeah.
And it gets down there late, these are some of the people that you have to take. I'll move on to mine. Mine is wide receiver Golden Tate. Now, he went from Seattle to the Lions. They're going to use this guy because he signed a 5-year, $31 million contract. So they want to get their money's worth for sure. So far, it's only preseason, of course, but he has caught every single ball that's been thrown his way, including a touchdown. I always like to see people I'm thinking about drafting catch touchdowns, even though it's preseason. Makes me feel like they're going to do it a little bit in the regular season. And Detroit is still throwing. Their passing offense is 9th in the preseason. So that was a little bit of a worry, was what were they going to do with Jim Caldwell being head coach. But looks like they're still throwing the ball quite a bit. And you have to remember that Megatron gets double and triple teamed.
Yep.
The Lions have been looking for a second receiver for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
That's steady, that can produce, and they really haven't found one. So they're hoping that Tate is that second guy that when everyone's paying attention to Megatron, they can go his way. Obviously, Seattle was more of a run offense, so definitely there wasn't as much throwing over there. I think he's a guy that you have to pick up if you can.
Tate, when he went, Jenilee's in a work league with me, and Tate went pretty damned early in our draft because everybody knows about the whole Megatron situation. It's really obvious the guy is coming from a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and of course, if you can get a number 1 or 2, if you can get a good number 2, even in the later rounds, that's way better than getting a 3 or 4 on another team.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll talk about this more on our podcast that you can find at blogtalkradio.com/GRR on the Greg Reifstick Radio Network. We talked about strategy, and wide receivers, strangely, went a little early in our draft this time.
Yeah, wide receivers, there were some quarterbacks that went kind of early, some tight ends. So every draft is really turning out to be very different. Some are running back heavy in the first couple rounds, and then some people are grabbing those wide receivers very early.
Yeah.
Especially the top tier ones.
Oh, yeah, definitely. My second one is Brandin Cooks of the New Orleans Saints, who I actually picked up.
Whoop, whoop. I like him.
Yeah, picked him up in about the 6th or 7th round. I'm damn happy about it. 5 passes for 55 yards and a touchdown in the preseason opener against the Rams. He lined up all over the field. He's playing all over the place. He's benefiting from the fact that they no longer have Lance Moore or Darren Sproles anymore. So they're testing him in all these different areas where they used to run them, and he's doing very well. Unfortunately, he stretched out for 1 touchdown catch. Did you see the highlight of this?
I did not see the highlight.
Oh, my goodness. He stretched out, and it was one of those where it was fingertips. Should have pulled it in, actually. Brandon just needed one more step on it, and he would have gotten it. But for a...
that's why it's preseason.
But exactly. But I mean, for a rookie to be doing that well, And for Coach Payton to be believing in him that much, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I like him a lot. Okay, my second one, and I love this guy. I got him in the 8th round of my draft. So I think he's going around there, 8th, 9 rounds. But is wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin for the Panthers. Now, another thing you have to remember when you're drafting wide receivers is who is throwing them the ball. Because you can have the most talented wide receiver, and if there's a crappy quarterback throwing to them,
Johnny Manziel. Sorry.
they're not going to do very much. Sammy Watkins is someone who's been going way earlier than I would ever take him because he's got E.J. Manuel throwing him the ball. I just don't think he's going to have quite the season everyone's expecting when they're taking him in the 4th round. You know, I think some people are taking him, you know, as early as like the 3rd. So, you know, you have to pay attention to quarterback. So why I like Kelvin Benjamin is he was the Panthers' 1st round pick. He's going to be their number 1 guy. If you remember, they lost Steve Smith. That was Cam Newton's favorite target. So Steve Smith is no longer there. They don't have anybody else to throw the ball to except for Greg Olsen. Their wide receivers are Khatri and Avant. So Khatri, Avant, or your number 1 pick. I think they're going to go toward that number 1 pick. Yeah. And the word on the street is Cam and him are attached at the hip on and off of the field. So they are developing not only on-field chemistry, but off-field chemistry, which you want as much chemistry between quarterback and wide receiver as possible. And he does have a touchdown in the preseason. Again, it's only preseason, but I like to see especially rookies get touchdowns. So he's a guy that's kind of been a secret. People are not talking about him very much. He's been kept on the low. He's a big guy. He's going to be their number 1. He's not going to be their number 3 or 4. So go get him in the later rounds. Like I said, I got him in the 8th. He's dropping to there, and I think he's going to ball out. He's going to be a possible, in my prediction, we'll see if I'm right, but he's going to be, you know, within the first month of the season, a possible starter for you as a wide receiver.
I like that pick a lot, too. And, I mean, you're dealing with a very defensive-minded team. And, yeah, as you mentioned, the other wide receivers that are on that team are very 2nd and 3rd tier. And it's kind of like a cookie cutter putting together. They rely on Cam Newton on that team.
Yeah.
And
Cam can throw the ball, though.
Yeah.
He can throw. So.
Yeah. But he needs some help.
Yeah.
And I think this will definitely be a big breather for him if he can get a chemistry going.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Our final wide receiver is Jordan Matthews of the Eagles. After he dropped 3 passes, thank God, in our debut against the Bears. But
little dropsies.
He had some dropsies, but
the nerves.
Yeah. And, you know, it's the Bears. But he went 9 for 104 yards against the Patriots in that just shootout game that was going on Sunday. It was just crazy.
Was there any defense being played in that game?
Not really, no.
There was very much being
played. But here's the big point is the Eagles put up a lot of points against the Bears. They put up a lot of points against the Patriots. The Eagles are going to be dangerous this year. I think Chip Kelly has figured out the NFL, and he's put together his ragtag group of guys. And Jordan Matthews is just a perfect fit for them. The Jordan that we have seen in practice is the Jordan that we saw today. Chip Kelly said after the game, I'm happy with his performance. Basically, he's going to be playing the slot in between Macklin and Cooper because they, of course, lost Jackson. But so that leaves a place for this kid to shine. I really think he's going to come on this season. And
again, that's another situation where Macklin's not all that amazing.
Nope.
Cooper, by far, is not all that amazing. I mean, I know he's got good chemistry with Foles. So, you know, they could use a guy that's kind of a breakout kid that will give them a little more oomph in the passing game.
And we'll get into more of the oomph in their passing game in our tight end report, too.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Big Balls Fantasy Football. We are going to roll right into tight ends, a very important position, again, especially if you're in a PPR league. And we're here to help you out with this one because there's only a couple top guys in the tight end position. So you're going to have to kind of reach and grab these points from guys that are a little bit more sleepers.
Yeah, Graham is going to go in the first round or the second round in every single draft.
Oh yeah, and there's only, like I said, maybe 3 top ones, elites that are really out there that are going to do a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and start this right off. My first tight end to watch for, who's a sleeper, you can definitely get him in the later rounds, is tight end Jordan Reed of the Redskins. Now, he played 9 games last season, and he only started 4, but that was due to injury. But even in those games, he had 45 receptions for 499 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he didn't totally blow it out, but those aren't bad stats for the number of games that he played. Gruden obviously likes to pass the ball, so that's a great thing. And their offensive coordinator, McVay, loves him. They have already stated that he's going to be a big part of the offense. So that's something that if they're already saying it now in preseason, I think they're going to follow through with that. And RG3 is definitely looking Reed's way. I saw him looking that way last night in the Browns-Redskins game. He says that he runs really great routes, and he's very difficult to cover. Another good thing is tight ends are always good for quarterbacks if they're scrambling as a bailout option. And I saw RG3 scramble a little more than I think Redskins fans want to see last night.
I think you saw on my Facebook page, I already the boy was limping already. He's limping in preseason. That's why I'm like, hey, Kirk Cousins, automatic quarterback sleeper.
So if he has to dump it off, Reed will be there. But yeah, he's supposed to be a big part of their offense. So go ahead and get him in your later rounds.
Oh, Reed's a stud. If he's available, you have to take him. Especially what happened in the draft we were recently in. All of a sudden, there's a run on tight ends.
Oh yeah,
and
they start just going.
Somebody will start getting excited, and we talk about this on our podcast and strategies. If there's a run, and you're worried about the wraparound not coming back to you, sometimes you got to take them.
Got to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Now, one person I had to pull the trigger on in the 2/3 of the way down in my work draft was Zach Ertz, who I am super crazy about on the Eagles. He balled out against the Bears, unfortunately, in week 1, and he's going to be the person lined up on the other side of Selleck. And I know we were just talking about this. Concern is, Selleck's going to get a lot of the balls. In preseason, Ertz has gotten a lot of the balls, and Selleck has been out there. You're dealing with Chip Kelly, who runs these very exotic offenses. So he's going to get some play. He's going to get some balls. Foles loves him, of course. Went 2 for 26 and a touchdown against the Patriots this last weekend in, that crazy-ass game. Last season, he went 469 yards and got 4 touchdowns late in the season on a run. So, they're just going to use him. Nick Foles is quoted as saying he looks at him as the next Gronkowski.
Ooh,
I just had to share that.
Big shoes to fill there.
Well, especially because Foles played with Gronkowski in college. So he's on his team and he's going to tout him. But, he's seeing some flashes, and I think Ertz is going to be big.
It's a good one. My next one is Kyle Rudolph of the Vikings. He's a guy you can definitely get late. He's not even going in some drafts, which is definitely confusing me. So I had to bring him up on this show. He is in the Norv Turner offensive system over there at offensive coordinator. And Norv loves to use tight ends. Just look at what he did in San Diego with Antonio Gates. So it's going to be a tight end happy offense over there. It seems like Castle and him already have chemistry. He went 4 of 5 for 89 yards and a touchdown. So that's not bad at all in the second preseason game. And they don't have a lot of wide receivers over there either. They're kind of a team that's confused in that realm. They have Jennings, and then they have Cordarrelle Patterson, who Cordarrelle's supposed to have a pretty breakout year as well. But they don't have a ton of wide receivers to go around. So Rudolph's going to be seeing a lot of targets. And this division, since we're in it, is going to be putting up points. Green Bay's offense is going to put up points, the Bears' offense is going to put up points, and the Lions are going to put up points. So the Vikings are going to have to struggle in all the division games to keep up and put some points on the board, and I think Rudolph is going to help with that. And the defenses of this division haven't shown to be all that great. I know the Lions' secondary is bad. We already talked about our Bears, Green Bay's defenses, and all that great either. So it's looking like this the division games might be high scoring. So
fantasy gold is what that's called. Usually
10 touchdowns a game.
We talk about interdivision games being toughies, and it might be a change this season because we might see some big scoring games. Fantasy wise, it's good. Unfortunately, I don't want to see our Bears get any shootouts, especially against the damn Lions, for crying out loud. Speaking of Antonio Gates, my tight end, my next one is Ladarius Green of the Chargers, who we all know that Antonio's getting long in the tooth. It's no big secret. So they brought this kid in, and he's developing. He's developing really well. He's 6'6", 240 pounds, and just runs like a beast. I mean, they call him a physical specimen. This guy you can never replace Antonio Gates. He was a unique player. He used to be a basketball player, had a unique style playing, but they're trying to call him the next one.
Yeah, well, he's old and super injury prone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good things about Greens.
Yeah. He in the preseason opener, he caught 2 passes for 26 yards. One of them a huge 20-yard catch over the middle. He lined up in some of the same packages. So a lot of these teams are going with 2 tight end sets now. So Antonio is going to get double teamed even though he has his age, but he has his reputation. And they're going to dump it off to Green. Keenan Allen is about the only other person besides Gates to throw to. Just like you were talking about on the Vikings, there's just a shortage of players to pass to. Keenan Allen just finally came into his own last season. You don't really have Eddie Royal is always,
Yeah, not elite. Not super elite guys.
He's going to go on another 2 to 3 game streak and become a one-hit blunder for Prost on his segment. But that's about it. So, I like him a lot. I think he's going to be the next heir apparent tight end, hopefully, there in San Diego.
Yeah, he's been going in every draft that I've seen so far, even some of the mock drafts I've done. So, my last guy is tight end DELANIE WEALKER. Now, he's a guy that hasn't even been going in drafts. Again, definitely one you can get way down there if you haven't drafted a tight end and you just absolutely need one for your roster. But new head coach Wisenhunt over there, again, likes to use tight ends. And he actually compared him to Antonio Gates because obviously Wisenhunt came from the Chargers and worked with Gates. He had his best year last year with 60 receptions for 571 yards and 6 touchdowns. So that was a really breakout year for him in being with the Titans. And, Locker's another quarterback that can be iffy. Another good thing is that, like I said, was stating before, if he's scrambling, if he can't get it down the field very well, the secondary's covering, he can dump it off to the tight end. So it's kind of like his security blanket. Yeah. I know they have Kendall Wright and Justin Hunter that are performing pretty good so far, but he's definitely expected to be a guy that gets a lot of balls thrown his way. While the Titans try to move their offense and kind of get that to put together a little more under new head coach Wisenhunt.
Well, and the backup quarterback might need help there because we all know Mr. Locker's proneness
That's part of the iffy.
Lowering your shoulder, Jake, is all fine and dandy, but you need to help. You need it to help you throw. So
he's like Cutler; he just can't stay healthy an entire season. So
they're physical quarterbacks, man. They like to get out of the pocket and run like idiots down the field, and whatever. Anyway.
So that wraps up our show for tonight.
Yes.
Go back and check out our running back and quarterback sleepers that we did last week because I know a lot of you haven't had your drafts at all, so you definitely need to get that info as well.
Yeah, go to our YouTube channel. Just type in Big Balls Fantasy Football. We're the only Big Balls Fantasy Football on YouTube, or youtube.com/BigBallsFootball. Go to BigBallsFantasyFootball.com and you can watch previous shows from last season. See, if you've never watched us before, you can read our cast bios and see what we're all about.
Absolutely. And then, of course, like us on Facebook, spread the word, facebook.com/BigBallsFantasyFootball, and tweet us, check out our Twitter @BigBallsFBall. Don't forget, if you do go to our YouTube, to hit the subscribe button. That way you'll automatically see all of our new shows pop up.
Yep, you'll know when they're coming. All right. Next week, we are, of course going to have what's going to be a very low-key show, but we'll try and keep it upbeat. Defenses and kickers. Are we just going to, like, bring a big twister spinner and just put the names of the kickers and just spin it around? And...
Maybe we should. That's the one sheet that for our draft I didn't even have. Like, I had to, like, look at someone else and, like, just give me a kicker. But
listen to our show at blogtalkradio.com/GRR or type in Big Balls Fantasy Football on iTunes, because Prost, who's our resident Packer fan, him and Cash talked about a lot of strategies last week on the podcast. And one of them was old school drafting versus new school drafting. And we definitely did some new school drafting in our work league.
Oh, yeah. So good luck on your drafts if you're having them before we see you again on the show. And we are done for this evening.
Good luck.